Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning from wherever you're joining us from today. My name's Sarah, and I'm the Program and Event Manager at the Reactor in Sydney. Welcome to a Microsoft Reactor Sydney live stream event. Today, we will be talking about 5 factors for more accessible meetings presented by MVP Megan Strant. So now Megan has presented with us at the Reactor previously, but for whoever's joining us for the first time today, I'll give you a bit of background. So Megan is an organisational change consultant based in Melbourne, Australia. She specialises in organisational strategy across the Microsoft 365 platform, along with working to establish employee experiences through learning and building better ways of working. Megan has built a career in project and change management with a specific focus on the Microsoft platform for the last 10 years, helping organisations plan for, implement and embedded key ways of working. At the centre of all her work is the impact and experience of people, along with the big picture and value of Microsoft 365 for all organisations. Today's session, as you can see, is a Teams meeting. So when joining, please do keep your mics and cameras off. There'll be opportunities throughout to ask questions. We'll be speaking for about 40 to 45 minutes with 10 to 15 minutes of questions. However, I'm sure there'll be some gaps in between as well at some point for you to ask anything. Please do via the chat, and then we can always answer via the in person or by the mic or in the chat section. We'll also be recording today's session as a reminder, and this one will be available on our YouTube channel within the next 24 to 48 hours, which will provide you with a link to. We'll also provide you with a link to the survey. If you have time to fill that out at the end, that would be great. But for now, without further ado, I'll hand the floor over to Megan to begin. So thank you so much, Megan, and over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the session I'm going to run through today. For those of you that have been to a few of my previous sessions, you may see a bit of a theme. I've done a few on accessibility, types of disability, hidden disability, and today we're talking about meetings. So we'll explore some specific info and features to drive more accessible meetings in your organisation. To begin with, my name is Megan. I'm a middle-aged woman with dark hair, a bob with a fringe. I just realised I need to update my photo on this slide because that's my COVID hair. But I'm, middle-aged woman presenting from my home office in Melbourne, Australia. I'm a consultant, as Sarah mentioned, focused on organisational learning and change strategy. And a majority of my work for over 10 years now has been with Microsoft tools. My background is psychology and organisational change. And I've also spent some time as a technical project manager. And more recently, I've been doing some additional study in professional learning theory and innovation in learning. So as you can see, that's definitely my passion and my focus, all connected to that experience of people in the workplace with technology. As a person, I myself have a hidden disability. I'm a curious person, and I'm very passionate about diversity and inclusion and accessibility and just human behaviour in general, particularly motivation and habits and learning, along with neurodiversity. So before we dive into the specific topic for today and the meetings detail, I wanted to just talk for a moment a bit more generally about diversity and disability. The world is really diverse, and we're interacting with different people every day. 1 in 6 people on the planet has a disability, and 70% of disabilities are hidden. People with disabilities can find ways to cover their challenges, hide. You may have heard the term mask, or even more recently, camouflaging. Some people do this, and they can actually suffer a lot of exhaustion from the energy that it takes to mask and hide those challenges if possible. We have probably a better sense of what it means to have a disability in the physical space, where we can see things like ramps and railings and tactile buttons. And we have some accommodations built into design for many products, but it's less so in the digital space, which has obviously become more important in the last couple of years with so much of our work remote and work from home. With this, though, many people's struggles can actually go unseen. Here are some of the categories of disability with some brief points with the challenges in each area. You can see that there are multiple types and areas for disability. Some are more obvious and some are more hidden. It's important to think about and be aware of the types of disabilities that can be present for people at work and some of those challenges, particularly where there are possible adjustments that can be made to improve the experience of people in the workplace. Let's briefly consider a workplace example. As I mentioned earlier, I've done a few sessions before, and if you've been to those, these first couple of slides are a repeat, and I've used them a few times. But I do really like the example of simply a workplace call, maybe a conference call in a meeting room. So if you think about having the conference call in the meeting room and that some people are dialing in and some are physically in the space, having that call might be okay for a blind person who can maybe hear the call, but it's not for deaf people. Or consider maybe when a conference call where people are talking over each other and cutting in, and how even that can be disabling for various people with different types of disability, whether it's just an aspect of hearing loss or even maybe neurodiversity or other things. Even things like voice and chat embedded can be hard for some people. So for example, chat within a meeting can be a great feature, but if someone on the call is using the read aloud feature, there are times when it reads the slides and the chat at the same time, and that can actually offer features to support others while impacting some people. So we need to recognise that disabilities can exist at different levels. And in your workplace, don't just assume we don't have anyone here with a disability, maybe because you can't see anyone in a wheelchair or you don't see anyone who's maybe blind in the office. Be really careful of the things that you don't know. There's also that people have partial disabilities. It could be due to age or maybe damage to something like their hearing. Also, a disability can be acquired gradually or suddenly. It could be due to an accident or health changes. So don't think of it either as singular. Some people actually have multiple disabilities. Someone could have a physical or a mobility challenge and also maybe have a neurodiverse challenge as well, or cognitive. I have shared a couple of links. So if you want to know more about these areas, there are some great Microsoft links that will be shared. And there's some really good content they've provided online to go deeper. And then particularly they extended into lots of little low-level features that can support. Microsoft actually outlines 6 categories in this area. And there's really great content online, as I mentioned. Where did I start when I wanted to learn more a while ago? There's a Microsoft LinkedIn course, which is fantastic. And so I highly recommend that. It's on accessibility and disability. And there's a number of sways online. There are sways, as I've mentioned, to do with educating you on the types of disability and challenges, and then all the features, along with how you can help things be more accessible. There are many challenges people face every day, but today, as I mentioned, I want to focus on meetings. Why? Because we do them every day in many roles. They're a huge part of many jobs, and they've been crucial to all businesses in the last few years, with many people remote and attending things virtually. So the outline for today, with the title of the session, I used the term factors. That was really just because I wanted to see it as the circumstances or the areas where you can improve and make things accessible. It wasn't about individual features, it was more groups of things to consider. So these are the areas that I'm going to go through: before, during, after the meeting, and then key things you can bring into it around your expectations, accessible content, and present in teams. So let's dive in. So firstly, before your meeting even starts, I want you to consider what you can do when you're scheduling it to enhance the experience. So go back to, it could be a meeting that you've been running for a long time. It could be a recurring one or just the way you always do things. Pause next time you're booking one and think about what are you actually trying to achieve and how does this get run? Are there apps and documents that you use? Do you take actions? Do you record information? Are you just doing a one-way presentation of content? Or is there nothing shared on the screen, and is it really just a brainstorm or a project discussion or something? So really think about setting it up for success. Now, this session we're in right now was usually we run them as live events, but we decided to run this as a Teams meeting today for specific features. And I'll touch on those in a moment. But essentially, when you're scheduling, then have a think about the Microsoft Teams meeting options. So for example, do you want chat in the meeting or do you want to disable it? Same with maybe Q&A. And do you want people to be able to mute themselves or even unmute to speak or put their camera on? So if this was a more formal briefing, maybe it was I'm the CEO and I'm doing a briefing to the whole company, sometimes it might be actually applicable to make it that people can't turn camera on or unmute and speak, because maybe it's just a crisis briefing and it's one way and we don't want the disruptions and distraction. While video is great for meetings within a team or when we're collaborating together, sometimes having people's video on can actually be a bit distracting, and it can be better to just have a single speaker. So have a think about those options and tweak them to suit. Also though, add things like alternative text or alt text and verify auto-generated text for all your images in your email invite as well as your session for people who use a screen reader. This helps provide context and meaning. Use the accessibility checker in Outlook for your meeting invite or any email communication with that group. And really consider the platform and the tech features in your meeting. You know, we're on Microsoft Teams, but it could be other products, whatever it is. Think about, will it provide the best experience for inclusive and accessible meetings? For example, some ways that we run things, we don't have captions available. I've actually done meetings on accessibility where we've had to apologise at the start because of the software or platform we've used. There aren't closed captions possible. And so again, that's why we opt for a team meeting sometimes or different Microsoft technology, so it's more accessible for everyone. Think about why if you're going to use additional apps that people are familiar with or not. So are we coming together as a group? Are we going to use OneNote or Planner, any of the Microsoft apps, or even Whiteboard to brainstorm? And let people know in advance and even share links to learning if you want to be really thorough. So if the team are using these apps, mention in how you're going to run the meeting in the body. In this meeting, we will be, you know, the purpose is blah, blah, blah. We'll be using OneNote and Planner to work through our actions. Give people more info about how you're structuring it. When you're sending out your invite, ensure that it not only has a clear purpose, but communicate to people how it will be run. So as I've said, this will be a visual presentation with captions, or we'll be collaborating in here with Planner and OneNote. This helps individuals with accessibility needs be aware, and also lets people reach out to you if they have a challenge with that before the meeting. Also, if you want and it's not always suitable, consider sending out your content prior so people can engage with it, have a look through and read, and feel a bit more ready for the session. Just in general, remember that you may actually have attendees with disabilities attending a meeting, whether they identify with a disability or not. So it's important to create an inclusive meeting from the start. So now that I've done all that talking, I want to show you my first demo, which is showing you, in case you're unaware, how to access the meeting options. So in here, I've got a meeting invite open, and you can see in the ribbon, meeting options. So when this comes up, and it always takes ages to load, you can see the options that you have. So for example, do we want people to be stuck in a lobby? Do we want external people in a lobby and internal straight into the meeting, or what would work best? So we can tweak that lobby experience. Always let callers bypass, things like that. Now down here, who can present? Maybe we just want one person to present, or everyone. Today, I'm the only presenter apart from the person who's moderating this session. That one said allow microphone. And so when we're done, we can just save. So have a look through, think about what's possible, and go back to this occasionally because things change. So you can see there, record automatically is a fairly recent feature. Things like allowing camera and allowing microphone, you can actually turn those off so no one can use them. So when we set up this meeting, we decided to use Teams for this session, and we talked about the options, and we decided we probably want a bit of interaction at some stage. So let's allow people to unmute and speak. So ensure you set it up to suit the needs of what needs to be achieved, and ensure people know what to expect, which starts from the invite, and then it also flows into how you kick off the meeting. So let's talk about that. So the next thing I'm talking about is setting expectations. If you do this from the outset on how the meeting will be run, it will be more inclusive for everyone and run smoothly. This might seem really simple, but creating a level playing field can mean a lot to many people. It provides the framework and the structure, and it keeps people in check. And if it's a bigger event, also ensure you maybe have a code of conduct. So just think about the guidelines for the session, how it's going to be run. Make sure that it's really clear from the outset. Try and make it an inclusive atmosphere. And it's really great to remind people of the tech features that are in the meeting, as I've mentioned. So let's take a look at an example of setting expectations. Now, I'm not going to take credit for this idea or this detail. It's something that Microsoft have pushed really heavily in the last few years, which is fantastic. And these days, every meeting I attend as an MVP or in a conference or whatever it is, they have really clear guidelines and structure. And in the few meetings that I attend, they've literally said, feel free to use these guidelines. You can see on this example that they're capturing on the left some aspects of code of conduct, and they're adding some guidance just on a simple slide. And you may have seen with some events that they often put a link in the chat and start off the meeting with a link to their code of conduct in more detail. Also, though, I love this audience guidance session. You need to consider things like audience participation. You know, should people be able to ask questions, communicate with the presenter? Do you want people to be actively involved in ideation or brainstorming or notes and discussion? Quick things there like the cue, questions in chat to be prefaced with a cue. That, it sounds silly, has been a game changer for me as a presenter. It's so easy to go through chat now and just look for that cue and know what are questions versus chit chat back and forth in a session. There are some things that we maybe don't think of, like the need for alt text on images in chat. If you put a photo in there, some people may struggle. Or even how chat can be impacted, as I mentioned earlier, okay? Sometimes lots of chit chat in the chat in a meeting might be read out by a screen reader and be distracting for some people. Not to mention the number of meetings where you've probably been to where half people are using the raise hand feature and the others are just unmuting. So it's really great to set this guidance from the start. You know, feel free to unmute and ask a question, or could you please use the raise hand feature in this session? So really great detail, simple. A lot of organisations I'm pushing for now to make this part of almost every meeting, or definitely more formal ones. So there's that really consistent guidance and expectations for people. So now that you've kicked off your session with the guidance, what's next? Our next part is accessible content. This one kind of crosses over with prior to the meeting, so I could have flipped these around. Essentially, when you create content, if possible, ensure that you've checked it with the accessibility checker prior. This is important prior, so you know your content is accessible, it's ready, and it's there during the meeting, and it's going to be, you know, have great color contrast or structure or everything. And as I've mentioned, in addition to this, use alt text. So I mentioned alt text before with regards to chat with the guidance, but also images within slides, alt text, so screen reader can read those out. So the photo of myself earlier when I introduced myself, there wasn't alt text attached to that. So that's not going to get read and described to someone. So I need to also make that change. Another thing to consider, which is something I actually only thought of recently, to be honest, or learnt recently, is objects on your visual content. So you may not be aware of the experience of someone who's watching your slides or that experience of using a screen reader. When you've got objects on a slide, it doesn't always know the order or how to read them out. So that can be a challenge. Let's have a look of some examples of accessibility features, or the feedback from the accessibility checker on this specific PowerPoint presentation that I'm using today. So first I want to show you how to access accessibility checker if you're not sure, and show you a couple of things that it picked up in my pack. So firstly, another video. So this is me in my presentation. Simply in the ribbon, you can see you go to review, and then there's check accessibility and you click on it. And this panel comes up on the right. You can see there, look at all my errors. It tells me every single slide that has an error that it's picked up to do with accessibility. I can do several things. I can ignore them. I can click on them. I can learn, and I can choose where I want to make changes. I can try and meet all of its needs, or I can just make some considerations. So you can see how it's really easy you know, if you work with PowerPoint, you do it all the time, is to just do that check, because guaranteed that if you do it and click through, you'll learn a few things and maybe you can tweak things ongoing to be a bit better. So this is just showing you how to access Accessibility Checker. Let's look at a couple more examples. So this is just an image and it shows the panel visible. So again, if you have a look on the right, it says missing alt text 8 or missing a slide title, hard to read contrast, things like that. And so when I click in these areas, it will tell me the things that it thinks are wrong with my slides and how I can actually tweak things to make it better. Another example, so that one slide that said, let me go back, what was the specific wording? One slide, hard to read text contrast. So one of my earlier slides here, the colours aren't strong enough and that it has an accessibility issue. And if you then, I can go down here and look at the additional information when I've clicked on it, and it says text becomes difficult to read when its colour is too similar to the colour behind it. This thing I'm reading out right now may be too hard to read for many of us because it's tiny and I should have zoomed in. But basically increasing the contrast can make it easier to read. So what I love about this is it's picking things out in my pack, my PowerPoint presentation. It's telling me why, and then there's steps to fix it. So this is an example of how it gives me feedback on the visual content, explains why it's an issue, and then helps me learn. This was my earlier slide when I introduced myself. So something that, as I've mentioned earlier, many may not think about is the order of the objects. All of the visuals on this slide are little visuals objects. It's just, to a screen reader, a bit of a mess of objects and what to read first or what to do. I haven't got alt text on my photo or this image or the logo. They're all images. So it's multiple objects. When I read them out, when I'm talking, obviously I can talk to them or I just spoke generally about myself. So look at the file or presentation and click on accessibility to understand a bit more about your content. This was something that was a great example to make you thinking about, is it to be read by a screen reader or is the person just to maybe listen to my voice? And what am I trying to achieve visually in this slide? So we've talked about before the meeting, setting it up with options, your content. So let's now dive into more about running your meeting. And this is one of my favorite things to demo. That felt so nerdy, but maybe you'll see why. So my next key factor or thing to consider is present in teams. So up until this point and right now in this session, I'm just sharing screen and I'm just sharing slides. I'm actually not using the present in teams feature because what I wanted to do now is pivot in a sec and flip to it to show you the difference. Present in teams is different to sharing screen and presenting, and it's a feature that I think came out in the last 12 months, which I'm finding a lot of clients still aren't aware of. In 2021, you joined a meeting and then with present in teams, you had to join the meeting, go back to PowerPoint, click present in teams, and it would merge it all together. This is still there, but you may have noticed in the last maybe 3 to 6 months that now when you go to the share tray in a meeting, which I will bring here, here's our meeting, the share tray. When you click on the share tray, there's now more options. Present in teams, I believe, helps your meetings be more than just viewing slides. It takes it to the next level and makes your content more engaging. I am going to show you some of the way that as a presenter you can use present in teams, and then I'm going to get flip and show you some features from the attendee because there's different things that can help different people. So this is, as much as I hate now, I've got double me in this meeting, being on screen. This is a video that I created to show you some of its features. So clicking on the share tray, there's presenter mode up the top and you can click on the different views and then you can add your screen. So firstly, that's how it looks. Just pause on that bit. So see the difference already. Instead of just a slide, that's the attendee view when I present in Teams. I'm using a newscaster type view. It's got my video streaming on the right-hand side and then my slides next to me with that background. So when I select the type of view, add the content, that's how it looks. Let's have a look at some of the features. So these are the slides that I was presenting today, but this is what my presenter view looks like in the background. And I'm showing you here some of the features I can use. So on the screen, there's a laser pointer. I'm using it on a slide to point things out. And now I'm flipping to the pen. So I can draw on the screen, highlight content. I can literally draw or highlight or whatever I want to do on content I'm talking about, instead of just talking to a slide and you're working out which bit I'm talking to. And then whenever I want, I just erase it. This isn't getting saved in my PowerPoint presentation. It's just while I'm live in presentation mode, I'm adding things and I can remove them. So firstly, those features I think really can help things be more engaging, okay? From an accessibility perspective, making it clearer on what's being focused on. And you can see I'm just moving through some of the features, whether it be that I want to change some settings, add captions and subtitles to my presentation. Zoom is really cool. So I've got a slide up, but let's really zoom in on what I want to talk about and maybe move that around to different areas of the content. I can jump to this view to help me move between slides. And those are the main features. So present in Teams, as I said, is a really great way to, rather than just, as I've been doing, showing you a slide, it's a better way to present your content. Now I'm going to stop sharing and change. So I'm just going to, this is always the hard thing, is you can't see what I'm doing on my screen. But there we go. So I'm now presenting in Teams instead of just sharing my content. So we can see the difference. Now I know that for a meeting that's maybe just a project issues discussion or a team meeting day to day, maybe you don't want to go this polished and professional. But if there is a reason, this can be quite a cool way to present to people. So I've added myself on the side and I'm presenting this content. One thing that I want to show you, if possible, if we can do this in this meeting, is now that I'm using Present in Teams, have a play with some features. So under my slides, you should have some buttons. One of the things that I love from an accessibility point of view here is when you go to the 3 dots, you can translate my slide into any language, or into the languages that are there. So for the people on the session, have a go. Under the slides, click on the 3 dots if you can see them, translate my slide into a different language. This is where demonstrating live is tricky because I can't show everything. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity to have a quick play with that and see the difference. So Present in Teams, I think, is more engaging because I'm literally pointing to content, highlighting, making it more visual, zooming in. But there are the added features of captions, transcript. It can be in different languages. And that bonus, which I love, is you could literally from your end change my view and everything on my slide into French or Italian or whatever language you choose. All right. Finally, what follows your meeting? So here are just some things to consider about after your meeting, like what happens after your meeting is over? And also think about not only what happens, but that experience for people who turned up or those who couldn't and they were absent. And then also the benefits of accessing your content. There may be actions, next steps, and also how is this tracked and achieved? So for people who attended, how can they follow up with you, review those actions? Maybe I take the actions and you were there, but you want to check them. How can we all progress the work? And for those who couldn't attend, how do you get access to the information and have input and get things done? Do they access the recording? And how are accessibility needs met after the meeting? Is your way of working challenging for staff who may have a disability, whether it's hidden or visible or shared? This is not just about people with a disability, it's about anyone really. I mean, when the meeting's over, do you save a recording somewhere and is it in your OneDrive and can no one access it? Think about the things people need to follow up on and the benefits of having a central recording, a transcript. I love word searching through a transcript for my name to check actions and things, even if I was there, so I can double check things. And just those general benefits of accessing content after. Remember, it's not, as I said, just about the transcript or accessibility checker for visual. Colleagues might be absent for mental health reasons as well. Some people might find that they're having a really, really bad day or for some reason they're not going to come, but they want to grab the recording when they're in a better headspace. They might have other reasons not to attend. They just need to watch it later. Don't make work suffer because people weren't available for whatever reason. So just to recap, and for those who joined late, so the areas that I really want people to consider expanding and polishing a bit more before the meeting. So the way you communicate about the meeting, the way you structure your options and set it up. Tell people in your meeting invite, in this meeting, we'll be reviewing a SharePoint list and taking actions, and we'll have closed captions available. Have a little bit of info. So if someone's trying to maybe they haven't disclosed a disability and it's stressful for them and has challenges, they could reach out on the side if needed. Set expectations. Apologies, that's not my computer ringing, it's someone else's. So have that expectation slide. Just set that guidance at the start to set the scene for everyone. Do you want them to raise their hand or unmute? And how are we all behaving? Check your content, learn about the accessibility checker. Remember, this is across documents in the Office suite, not just PowerPoint for meetings and presentations. Present in Teams, which I'm doing now, remember, is pretty cool. We've got laser pointers and features and translation of language. And as I said, after your meeting, how can you make it better and keep things going in an efficient, productive way without people not accessing content? So that's everything that I wanted to talk about today. Kind of a bit more short and punchy, just some key areas to make your meetings better. I've again got another slide with objects that are all messy, and something worth thinking about is this slide is not accessible. And so we've all got things to learn. But those are just some ideas. So remember, through the session in the chat, there are some really great links to Microsoft sways that are online and public on accessibility features, learning all about it and driving change in that area. Before we finish up, does anyone have any questions? Or Sarah, I haven't looked at chat. Is there anything in the chat?
Hi, Megan. Thank you. We'll just give everyone a moment to see if they have any questions. Feel free to raise your hand, put it in the chat section, and then you can potentially come off mute as well. As someone's typing, I'll just remind everyone that there's the additional learning links we've got there with the AKAs that I sent through in the chat at 4:09 specifically, so you can go back and grab those. We've also put the survey link in there with the event code 15744, and the Reactor YouTube channel link is also there. So this recording will be available on our YouTube channel within the next 24 to 48 hours. So do come back and check it out then, and we'll share that with you. And we also put the event link to our meetup page for the Reactor Sydney for any upcoming events that you can check out as well. Great. And Darlena said, Megan was pretty clear, terrific, thank you.
You're welcome. And great point about the recording. If there's anything here that you think that you might want to take back to your organisation or think more about, grab the video and just pause it, you know, and have another look at it. Definitely have a look at the online content, the links shared, and share that around your organisation.
Great. And Michael said, thank you, Megan, very informative. Sorry, gotta go.
No
Parent duties. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there for today, and everyone knows where to grab those links and the recording after today's session. So thank you so much, Megan. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Have a good rest of your afternoon, evening, or morning, wherever you joined us from, and we'll see you next time for another Microsoft Reactor live stream event.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.